What if I told you there's a plant so powerful, you plant it once and it keeps feeding your family forever? No replanting, no chemicals, no fragile harvests. Just endless food, rising from the soil year after year. It has more iron than spinach, more calcium than milk, more vitamin C than oranges. And yet, you've never even heard its name. Why was it erased from history? Welcome to Forgotten Leaf Secrets, where hidden plants and lost remedies return. Today, we reveal the story of a plant you plant once, and it feeds your family forever. Erased by history, buried by industry, by still alive and forgotten soil. Asterisk, there's a plant that fed families for centuries, yet you've never heard of it. You plant it once, and it keeps feeding you for decades. It's no replanting, no fertilizers, no fragile harvests. Just quiet, powerful abundance. It grew in cottage gardens across Europe, survived wars, famines, and empires. Roman emperors demanded it as tribute. Peasants relied on it for survival. And for 500 years, it was the backbone of rural nutrition. More iron than spinach, more calcium than milk, more vitamin C than oranges. And yet, in 1950, every major seed catalog in America removed it. In the same year. Why? Because this plant didn't fit the business model. It didn't need to be bought again. It didn't generate recurring revenue. It was too efficient, too generous, too independent. So it was labeled inefficient, replaced by crops that needed chemicals, replanting, and control. And slowly, its name was erased. But the plant never stopped growing. In abandoned gardens, it still rises every spring. In forgotten soil, it still feeds quietly. And today, its story is returning. This is not just a vegetable. It's a symbol of suppressed abundance. A cure for hunger buried by industry. And tonight, we ask, why don't you know about it? Asterisk, asterisk, the story of this plant begins centuries ago in the forgotten villages of Europe. Known as Good King Henry, it was a perennial miracle once planted. It returned every spring, feeding families without fail. Roman emperors demanded it as tribute. Villagers relied on it through famine and war. For peasants, it was survival itself. Its leaves carried more iron than spinach. Its shoots were eaten like asparagus. And its seeds and roots were a hidden store of nutrition. This was not just food. It was resilience. A plant that asked for nothing, yet gave everything. Year after year, without replanting, without chemicals, without cost. But as modern agriculture rose, the story began to change. Industry favored crops that required fertilizers, pesticides, and constant replanting crops that generated profit. Good King Henry did not fit the model. It was too generous, too independent, too enduring. And so, quietly, it was erased. Seed catalogs stopped listing it. Farmers were told it was obsolete. Within a single generation, its name had almost vanished. Yet the plant itself never died. In abandoned gardens, in forgotten soil, it still rises every spring, waiting for the day its secret would be rediscovered. Asterisk, asterisk, the disappearance of Good King Henry was not an accident. It was deliberate. As modern agriculture rose, industry saw profit not in plants that gave endlessly, but in crops that demanded constant replanting, fertilizers, and control. Good King Henry was too generous, too independent, too unprofitable. You planted it once, and it kept feeding you forever. No seeds to buy again, no chemicals to sell, no recurring revenue. For companies built on profit, this was a threat. And then came the moment of erasure. In the mid-20th century, seed catalogs across America quietly removed it. In the same year, almost every major listing dropped its name. Generations who had relied on it suddenly found it gone. Farmers were told it was obsolete. Villagers were told it was inefficient. And slowly, the plant that had fed families for centuries vanished from public memory. But the truth is, plants never vanished from the soil. In abandoned gardens, forgotten corners, and neglected fields, good King Henry still rises every spring, waiting, surviving, defying the silence imposed upon it. Asterisk, asterisk. For centuries, families trusted good King Henry without knowing why it worked. But modern science has begun to uncover the secret locked inside its leaves and roots. This plant is not ordinary food. It is a nutritional powerhouse. Its leaves carry more iron than spinach, strengthening blood and fighting fatigue. Its calcium content rivals milk, fortifying bones and teeth. And its vitamin C levels surpass oranges, boosting immunity and protecting against disease. But the real secret lies deeper. Inside its fibers are compounds that act directly on the body's pain and inflammation pathways. These natural molecules don't just feed, they heal. They calm swelling, soothe joints, and restore balance in ways synthetic pills struggle to match. Unlike modern crops bred for profit, good King Henry was designed by nature for survival. It asked for nothing, no fertilizers, no pesticides, yet gave endlessly. Its shoots were eaten like asparagus, its seeds ground into flour, its roots brewed into tonics. Every part of the plant carried strength. This was not just food, it was medicine, a living pharmacy growing quietly in the soil. And yet, despite its power, it was erased from catalogs, silenced by industry, and forgotten by history. But the truth cannot stay buried forever. The science is clear. Good King Henry was stronger, richer, and more enduring than the crops that replaced it. And now, its secret is rising again. Asterisk, asterisk, for decades, good King Henry lived only in memory, whispered by elders. Remembered in fragments of folklore and hidden in the corners of abandoned gardens. But slowly, the silence began to break. Herbalists rediscovered its shoots, calling them the poor man's asparagus. Gardeners stumbled upon its leaves, richer than spinach, and wondered why it had vanished. Researchers digging into forgotten archives found records of its power, nutrition, resilience, and healing compounds that modern crops could not match. In villages across Europe, the plant still rose every spring, defying the erasure. Families who had kept it alive passed down seeds in secret, preserving a legacy industry tried to bury. And now, in the age of rediscovery, scientists are confirming what tradition always knew. This plant was never obsolete. It was extraordinary. Today, good King Henry is returning, not as a relic, but as a symbol of abundance, of independence, of food that asks for nothing, yet gives forever. A plant that could feed families for generations. If only we remember its name. Asterisk. Asterisk. In a world where food insecurity is rising, where families struggle with rising costs and fragile supply chains, the forgotten power of good King Henry feels almost revolutionary. Imagine a plant that asks for nothing. No fertilizers, no pesticides, no replanting, yet gives endlessly year after year. This is not just history, 'tis a blueprint for the future. A single planting could feed generations, reducing dependence on industrial crops and chemical inputs. In communities where hunger still haunts daily life, this plant could be the difference between scarcity and abundance. Modern science now confirms what tradition always knew. Its nutritional profile is extraordinary. Iron to fight anemia, calcium to strengthen bones, vitamin C to protect immunity, and hidden compounds that soothe inflammation and restore balance. It is food, medicine, and resilience all growing quietly in the soil. But perhaps its greatest gift is independence. Good King Henry breaks the cycle of dependency on corporations and seed catalogs. It reminds us that nature designed abundance long before industry designed profit. Plant it once, and it becomes a living inheritance, a gift passed down through generations, a silent guardian against hunger. And yet, most of us have never heard its name. That silence is not an accident. It is the result of erasure. But rediscovery is happening now. Herbalists, gardeners, and researchers are bringing it back. And if we listen, if we learn, if we plant. This forgotten miracle could rise again, not just as a relic of the past, but as a solution for the future. Asterisk, asterisk, this plant is more than nutrition, more than survival. It is a symbol of what was taken from us, a reminder that abundance was buried, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too well. Good King Henry fed families for centuries. It endured wars, famines, and empires. It asked for nothing, yet gave everything. And then it was silenced, erased from catalogs, dismissed as obsolete, forgotten by history. But the soil never forgot. Every spring, in hidden corners, it rose again, quietly, defiantly, waiting for the day humanity would remember. And now, that day has come. Its return is not just about food. It is about freedom. Freedom from dependency. Freedom from scarcity. Freedom from the idea that survival must be bought. Plant it once, and it becomes a living inheritance, a gift passed down through generations, a legacy of resilience. This is the moment where history bends back toward truth. The forgotten plant is rising again, not as a relic, but as a revolution. A revolution of soil, of seed, of abundance. And tonight, as you hear its story, you are part of that rediscovery. You are part of the return of a miracle that industry tried to bury, but nature refused to let die. Asterisk, asterisk, you may be wondering. If this plant was erased from catalogs, how can it still be found today? The truth is, Good King Henry never disappeared completely. In forgotten corners of Europe, in old cottage gardens, and in the soil of abandoned farms, it still rises every spring. Gardeners who know its secret call it the perennial spinach. Herbalists treasure its shoots as the poor man's asparagus. And now, small seed banks and heritage growers are quietly bringing it back. Seeds are rare, but they exist, passed down through families who refuse to let the legacy die. Plant it once, and it becomes part of your land forever. Each spring, its leaves return, rich in iron and calcium. Its shoots emerge tender and edible. Its roots and seeds carry hidden strength. It is not just a crop, it is a living inheritance, a food source that endures through time. Imagine a garden where one planting feeds your children, your grandchildren, and generations beyond. Imagine independence from fragile supply chains, freedom from replanting, and resilience against scarcity. That is the gift of Good King Henry. Asterisk, the return of Good King Henry is not just about a forgotten plant. It is about reclaiming what was stolen: abundance, independence, and the right to feed ourselves without permission. For centuries, families planted it once and lived on its endless gifts. It endured storms, wars, and famine. It carried strength in its leaves, healing in its roots, and resilience in its shoots. And then it was silenced, erased not by nature, but by profit. But nature does not forget. Each spring, in hidden corners, it rises again. Quietly, defiantly, reminding us that abundance cannot be destroyed. That food security does not have to be bought. That survival can still grow freely from the soil. Today, its rediscovery is more than nostalgia. It is a revolution. A reminder that the answers to hunger, health, and resilience were always here, buried in the soil, waiting for us to listen. Asterisk. Story of Good King Henry is not just about a forgotten plant. 'Tis about remembering that nature's wisdom was always here, waiting beneath the soil. A plant erased by profit, but kept alive by resilience. A plant that could feed families forever, if only we choose to bring it back. This is the legacy of abundance. This is the secret industry tried to bury. And now, it belongs to you. If you found this journey eye-opening, don't let the secret fade again. Like and subscribe to Forgotten Leaf Secrets, and together we'll uncover more hidden plants, more suppressed remedies, and more wisdom buried by time. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected with Forgotten Leaf Secrets, because many more hidden stories are waiting to be uncovered.